Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to the Historic Travels YouTube channel. Before we get started, I would just like to say a big thank you and welcome to all of my new subscribers. I really appreciate it, and all the comments that I've been getting, I really like reading them and just hearing what you guys have to say. And as I said always, if y'all have any video suggestions or ideas, please leave it in the comments. I will take a look at it. And anyway guys, please make sure you hit that subscribe button and please give my video a like. It really helps my channel get out there and helps my videos circulate a little more. Anyway, let's get into the topic of today's video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the wreck of the Titanic as it exists today on the seafloor, and we're going to be discussing why the ship is in such a rapid state of decay. People notice in between dives, like come down 1 year and visit again another year, the ship rapidly changes and disintegrates between these dives. However, when you compare Titanic to another shipwreck, this is the Britannic, Titanic's sister ship. It sunk a few years after Titanic. It is in much better condition than the wreck of the Titanic, even though it sank just a couple of years later. So why is Titanic in such bad shape, and why does Britannic seem to be holding up so well? The main culprit for the condition of the Titanic are these guys right here. These are small bits of bacteria that have clumped together to form these massive structures on the wreck called rusticles. These things are everywhere on the ship, covering every piece of metal on the Titanic's hull. Now, even though they're called rusticles, the Titanic isn't rusting like an old building or metal or anything that you would see on the surface. You need oxygen for something to rust. Rusticles are bacteria that live in the ocean, and they get their nutrients and stuff, since there's no sunlight or anything like that at those depths. They get their nutrients from eating the steel and the metal, the iron and stuff inside of the ship. So these rusticles are literally eating the Titanic from the inside out. As you can see from these pictures, the rusticles are literally everywhere. They cover the outside, the inside of the ship, and just anywhere you look inside of the Titanic or on the Titanic, you'll see these rusticles growing. They have literally completely overwhelmed the Titanic. But what about Britannic? You know, I mean, she sunk only a couple of years later and she's at the bottom of the ocean as well. But why isn't she being eaten alive by these bacteria or these rusticles? In order to answer the question of why the Britannic is in much better shape than the Titanic is today, we have to talk about the locations to which each of the ships sank. The Titanic sunk in the middle of the North Atlantic, and it's 2.5 miles to the bottom. It's very cold, it's very dark. The ground that the Titanic is sitting on, or ocean floor, is a very, very acidic environment, and there's a lot of strong currents eating at it, and just the Titanic has the bacteria, it's got the ocean currents constantly hitting the hull, and it's just a overall very, very harsh environment. The Britannic is only 400 feet down, and she's really close to the island of Kea. The Britannic hit a mine, and the captain was trying to beach the ship before it went down. That tells you how close to land she was. Anyway, there is sunlight at those depths. Not much, but there is sunlight. So that means the Britannic has a bunch of other life on it. It's got a bunch of coral and fish and stuff like that. The Britannic has a lot more things going on it than the Titanic does. So where the Britannic does have rusticles and stuff, just like Titanic does, the rusticles have to compete with all this other life and all this other stuff that's down there, you know, coral, fish, and whatever other plants can thrive at those depths. Since there's sunlight and stuff, there's a lot more light. However, the Titanic is in a dark abyss where very, very little life can exist. So these rusticles, think of them like, you know, you get rid of one animal from an ecosystem and another animal goes insane and starts producing and multiplying like crazy. It's the exact same thing. Where the rusticles on Titanic don't have any competition, they can just spread and eat like crazy. Whereas with Britannic, the rusticles have to compete with a whole bunch of other life. That is the big reason why Titanic and Britannic's condition is so rapidly different. These photos were taken on the wreck of the Britannic, and you can see all the other life on the ship. You can see just in these two pictures, like these plants and all this other stuff growing. So the bacteria or the rusticles have to compete with all these other plants in order to eat the ship. Jumping back to Titanic, so eventually, because of all of this bacteria and all this stuff that's on the hull, the Titanic is eventually going to disappear. They always have rough estimates to how long the ship has left, but I mean, honestly, I'd say sometime in the next 30 to 50 years, the Titanic will be more or less gone. what's going to happen to it is the bacteria is going to slowly eat away at the hull more and more and more. And eventually, it's not just going to vaporize away. The Titanic is actually going to collapse because the support beams and stuff inside the ship are actually still holding the ship up. But all that stuff, all those beams are being eaten by the bacteria. So eventually the Titanic is just going to, the hull is just going to get weaker and weaker and weaker until eventually the entire ship collapses. These photos are overhead shots of the Titanic in 1987, 2004, and 2010, and you can actually see the deterioration process at work. The big thing that I note here is take a look at the crow's nest. As you can see in this picture, the crow's nest in the 1987 shot, it's very stable, it's sturdy, it looks just like it just fell over. But when you look at the later shots, you can see where it's buckled in the middle and collapsed due to the bacteria and all the stuff going on at the bottom of the ocean. Whenever you look at the crow's nest on the wreck today, it's actually the subject of a little bit of a controversy. There was some claims before that people actually knocked the actual crow's nest part off of the wreck, because if you notice in the 1987 shot and then in the 2004 shot, the crow's nest is gone, but I don't believe that to be true. The claim is that when they were trying to recover the Titanic's bell that was on the crow's nest, the submarine knocked off the actual crow's nest. However, the bell of the Titanic was actually found out in the debris field. So me personally, I think the crow's nest just disintegrated and fell off. But that does bring up an interesting point. Whenever people visit the Titanic, like in their submarines to send robots or something into the hull, they usually land the submarine on the Titanic itself. And that also damages the ship. The Titanic is very fragile. So not only do we have to deal with the rusticles and the ocean conditions, when we visit the ship and we actually touch the hull, we are inadvertently accelerating the disintegration of the Titanic. So in the end, what's going to happen to Titanic? Well, as you can see from this animation, the disintegration should start from the back where the ship was more damaged in the sinking and proceed towards the front, which is in overall better condition. The back of the ship will begin to disintegrate and just collapse on itself, and the walls of the ship will buckle outward, and the ship will just collapse more and more, heading towards the front of the ship until eventually the entire ship is gone. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you got something out of it. I've really enjoyed making it. And please guys, give my video a like, and please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out my channel and gets the YouTube algorithm going and just tries to spread awareness for my channel. Anyway guys, I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I hope you all are doing well. And please leave me a comment on any future video ideas. I always try to read all of my comments. Alright guys, well, you all have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.